So let's continue. Performance bias. Before we get started, I want to give you a short reminder that bias isn't limited to gender. Secondly, that knowing that bias exists is not enough. This is why we are here, to get to know what we can do. And we all fall into bias traps. So when you feel upset because someone is biased against you, don't feel upset. Just find the tools, the tips, the ways to bring the awareness to the situation so you can help to eradicate bias at work and beyond. So let's start with performance bias. What exactly is performance bias? It is based on deep rooted and incorrect assumptions about women's and men's abilities. We tend to underestimate women's performance and overestimate men's. How upsetting this is, isn't it? But it's true. We all do. Not only men, women also do that towards other women. We tend as a result, women have to accomplish more to prove that they are as competent as men. And this is why women are often hired based on past accomplishment. They need to prove that they have the right skills, that they can do it. While men are often hired based on future potential. You assume they have the skills they need to, even if they don't, but they will be able to develop them. So it's about something that is clear. We have the woman shows, we need the woman to show these skills, and the men, we assume that they have the potential to develop these skills. Women with disabilities are and women of color, particularly Latinas and Black women, experience this bias even more often than other women. They are more likely to have their judgment and competence questioned and to hear others express surprise at their language skills or other abilities. To understand the impact of this bias, consider what happens when you remove gender from this decision making. In one study, replacing a woman's name with a man's name in a resume improved the odds of getting hired by more than 60%. Can you imagine that? Just for changing the name, the person judging the skills once thought was a man had the bias of 60% more possibilities of hiring that person. In another, when major orchestras used blind auditions, I don't know if you heard about that. So they could only hear the musicians but not see them. The odds of women making it past the first round improved by, can you guess? 50%. So, ladies, this is serious. This is not a gamey thing. But performance bias often leads to missed opportunities and lower performance ratings for women. And both can have a huge impact on career progression. This bias is even more pronounced when review criteria aren't clearly specified, leaving room for managers and others to rely more on gut feelings and personal inferences or preferences. And also these leads, this is my uh, view here, of women with this tendency of always learning more and more and more and more skills and never being ready to take this step towards putting themselves forward to take a higher position, a more challenging position, because also by all means they have to prove themselves much more than men. But still, we have to have this in mind, so we women put ourselves forward and we have the right arguments to see when we see there is a bias in the judgment about our skills, that we can speak up. I will give you here an example in hiring. Here's the case. You are on a hiring committee and you noticed that your colleagues prefer candidates who are men over women with very similar experience. Too common. Why it happens? This could be a sign of bias in your hiring process and may unfairly disadvantage women. When qualified women are overlooked, the company misses out on their talents and on their chance to build more diverse teams. What to do? Mention to the hiring committee. Remember, you're part of the committee. Then that you've noticed they tend to select men over women with similar abilities. They will probably say no, and you have to show the proofs, the fact. You can also explain why it happens. Then suggest a solution because research shows that when teams agree on a set of clear criteria and use it consistently for all candidates, the hiring process is fairer and the most qualified women and men can rise to the top. As everything, base your decision in facts, and the clearer you have the criteria of selection, it's not only good for the candidates and for the employees because they understand the criteria of selection of their companies, but it's also super important for you if you are the person in HR hiring people, because you don't need to overthink or you don't need to get your gut feeling. You might get it. See something here. We might get our gut feeling as a final plus, let's put this way. If we two candidates are exactly the same, but then there are two women, let's put that way, then you can say you have to use your gut feeling there to see which one is going to be, because they're very, 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 very much the same. But when it's a man and a woman, you have really to be careful if your gut feeling is not a biased one. Tricky. Why it happens? We tend to rate women lower than men, and even if they have similar qualifications. Sad to hear, but it's true. This can make a real difference in hiring. In one study, replacing a woman's name, as I said before, again, replacing a woman's name with a man's name on a resume increased the likelihood of being hired by more than 60%. And the impact can be even worse for some groups, including Black women, Latinas, Native American women, Asian, and women with disabilities. Though whose competence is questioned both because they're women and because of stereotypes about their race or ability. So be attentive to that. And let's continue. Attribution bias, the next one.